Hey, I'm Stephanie, and today I want to talk about the time Pamela Anderson caused an uproar by doing absolutely nothing. No smoky eye, no lip liner, just her face. And somehow it made more headlines than half the Fashion Week outfits combined. If you don't know Pamela Anderson, she was one of the most famous women of the 90s, a Baywatch star, a tabloid fixture, and an icon of a very specific kind of glamour, which is why her turning up barefaced to an industry event was such a plot twist. She walked into Paris Fashion Week without a stitch of makeup, and people reacted as if it was the surprise reveal in a soap opera. Think about that. We live in a world where a woman skipping foundation is breaking news, and it's still in headlines, partially because Pamela herself keeps the story alive. Not only has her bare face become her calling card, but it's become even more important now that she's the face of a skincare brand. Of course, Pamela explained it really simply. She said she was tired of playing roles all the time, the actress, the icon, the rock star's wife, and she wanted to see who she was without all that, and that's why she shed her iconic makeup look, which fascinates me because my relationship with makeup is almost the complete opposite. I don't usually wear makeup as a costume. For me, it's a way to turn up the volume on who I already am. So here are the questions I want to explore today. Why does one bare face spark such a frenzy? And what does that say about the way we all think about things like beauty and aging and authenticity? And when that bare face sells skincare, how much of that story is personal? How much of it is branding? And how much are our own biases wrapped up in all of it? But first, let's rewind, because this whole story started when she went to Paris Fashion Week barefaced with only a little bit of mascara. So let's start there too. As we talk through some of her choices and what they can inspire in a conversation about beauty, aging, and authenticity, I will be getting ready with my monthly makeup bag, plus an additional lipstick, because I'm going to at least try to create a 90s Pamela Anderson inspired look as we go through all of this. I won't be talking about what I'm using, but I will link it in the show notes just in case you're curious. Now, before we go any further, I think it's important to pause and remember that Pamela Anderson's relationship with beauty didn't happen in a vacuum, because none of our relationships with beauty happen in a vacuum. She is someone who has been exploited in really public, really painful ways. As a child, other people decided what her body meant. And then later on, when she tried to reclaim that agency, whether it was posing for Playboy on her own terms or fighting in court against the theft of her private home videos, she was met with judgment. She could have made millions by simply cashing in on the stolen footage of her private life that was leaked without her consent, but she didn't, because for her, principles mattered more than profit. So when Pamela says that she was always playing a role and now she wants to see who she really is, and one way to do that is to drop the makeup, that's not just a style choice. That's also a healing process that she's going through. And that's why I don't want this video to come across like I'm critiquing her decisions. We're all just trying to do the best we can with what we have. And I think that deserves compassion. Women already face more than enough judgment in the media for the way we look. So to me, the more useful question here isn't whether Pamela made the right decisions or cosmetic choices in her life. It's about what our reactions to her choices say about us, about how we see beauty and aging and our own reflection. And to me, it feels like the most natural thing in the world with her backstory that she would eventually want to put the makeup down and then just let her face be hers again. But here's where our stories diverge, because for Pamela, makeup was often a costume, a way to play roles or to armor up or to step into someone else's idea of who she should be or make herself look more like a role that she wanted to excel at. For me, it's been almost the opposite. I have never really worn makeup to hide myself. I've worn it to amplify, to turn up the volume on who I already am. Give me some eyeshadow before a performance and suddenly it feels like I have stage lights built in. Give me a little concealer and foundation and I'm not hiding myself or erasing myself. I'm bringing the version of me who got a full night's sleep, even though I definitely didn't. And that's the thing about beauty. The same tools can serve completely different purposes depending on whose hands hands they're in. For her, eyeliner was part of a mask, and for me, it's more like a megaphone. So is one of us right and the other one wrong? Of course not. We're both right. We're just solving different problems. And that's why this conversation matters, because there's no universally correct way to do beauty. There's no moral scorecard attached to whether you wear a full face every day or nothing at all. Makeup doesn't come with an instruction manual for your soul. So here's where I want to bring you in. What does makeup mean to you? Is it armor? Is it play? Is it self-expression or security? There is no single right answer. And yet, we all do share one reality, and that is that our faces do not stay the same over time. And that changes the whole conversation. If makeup can be both a mask and a megaphone, what happens when the canvas itself starts to change? Because makeup choices don't happen on a blank slate. They're made on top of real skin, and that skin carries our history and our habits and our genetics and our age. And that's where this conversation gets a lot more complicated. Several years ago, a close friend of mine got a laser treatment, and she didn't tell me about it. We just met up several weeks after she had had it done, and I could not stop staring at her skin. So finally I asked her, "What skincare are you using? Because your face looks amazing." And she lit up, because that's exactly, of course, what she had wanted to hear. And she said, "Actually, I got Fraxel, and I didn't tell you because I wanted to see if you would notice." And my reaction was basically, how could I not notice? She looked incredible. It was like her skin had been photoshopped, but in real life. And as someone who's never considered getting an in-office treatment, suddenly I began wondering if, with all my creams and at-home face lasers, if I had been bringing a water gun to a tank fight this whole time. And that's when I realized her results weren't just about skincare or lifestyle choices. They were about access. She had options that I didn't, options that made aging less visible. And of course, Pamela Anderson has had access to those sorts of things too. She might have stopped in-office procedures several years ago, but that was after decades of Botox and other treatments that can slow the aging process down. Because here's the thing, I do all the at-home stuff, red light masks and microcurrent and a handheld laser, and they do help, but there's a big difference between consumer devices and medical grade treatments. My friend had access to something that simply isn't available to me because of cost and time, or the willingness to look like a shedding snake for 2 weeks. Plus, the phrase "beauty is pain" just never really inspired me. At this point in the aging process, I feel like my face is my face, and I might as well just become friends with this new version of myself. Pamela has said that she's fine with aging, and I admire that, but it got me thinking. It's one thing to want that, and it's another thing to actually feel that way. I've been talking with my patrons and channel members about this recently, and my grandmother had a really striking take on aging that stuck with me. So it's been on my mind even more as I've been watching Pamela's choices. Because as much as I'm okay with my fine lines someday turning into wrinkles, aging still isn't clear-cut to me. Most of the time, I'm fine with all of it, because as I age, I see flashes of my mother and my grandmother and my aunts in the mirror. And I would never want to erase that connection to the people I love, some of whom I've lost. But some days, other things get to me, like the capillaries that are starting to pop up or the jowls. I'm not going to lie, those things do get on my nerves. So I'm curious, how do you feel about the signs of aging in yourself? Do you go with the flow or try to push back? Do you embrace it all? Is it a little bit of a mix of everything? I would love to hear your thoughts, because I think the more honest we are about how aging really makes us feel, the more interesting this conversation gets. Because the phrase "aging gracefully" can hide a lot of invisible advantages. Some people have a head start thanks to years of Botox, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or they have access to expensive treatments that press pause on time, or just plain good genetics. Meanwhile, I'm out here wearing sunscreen like a Victorian ghost, and I still end up with sunspots. So when Pamela walked into Paris Fashion Week barefaced and glowing, that glow might not 100% have been due to moisturizer. It might also have been the result of decades of interventions that made going makeup-free a little bit less of a gamble. But that made me think that invisible advantages aren't just about skin. They're also about story, because what we're told about beauty can often be just as powerful as Botox. And here's the pattern I can't ignore. Alicia Keys went barefaced and launched a skincare line. Pamela Anderson went barefaced and, surprise, she acquired a skincare brand. And look, maybe that's coincidence. Or maybe it's marketing dressed as authenticity. As lovely as Pamela looked with the really thin eyebrows, I'm not doing that. Because I remember watching Pamela's Drew Barrymore interview where Drew leans in and asks her about her skincare routine. And it's framed like this vulnerable, spontaneous moment between two girlfriends just sitting on a couch. But of course it wasn't. That was a commercial. It's marketing disguised as intimacy. And when we think of it that way, it feels kind of shady. But here's the thing. Those tactics only exist because they work. Because we let them work. We want to suspend our disbelief. It's the same way we don't walk out of a superhero movie saying, excuse me, but if Spider-Man really swung like that, his arms would have been yanked out of their sockets by the first corner. We know it's impossible, but it's much more fun to picture a graceful swing than a trip to the ER. And when we watch celebrities just chatting about their beauty routines, I think deep down we know that those conversations are manufactured in the same way. They're not lying exactly. They're just telling us a story. They're using the truth conveniently, shaping it into a story that serves their goals. And a lot of us choose to play along. We let ourselves believe that it's a real, unfiltered moment because it feels good to imagine that we know these people, that we're part of their conversation. And in Pamela's case, I think the idea of a script runs even deeper because for a whole chunk of her career, her story wasn't really hers to tell. The media twisted her image and rewrote her narrative and then profited off of it, often without her consent. Which brings me back to her history. When others tried to profit off of her most private moments, she refused, even when she could have made millions signing off on those stolen tapes, because to her, principles mattered more than profit. So now, when she goes makeup free and acquires a skincare brand, I don't necessarily see that as inauthenticity. At first glance, it might look like a marketing ploy, going barefaced and then launching skincare, but rushing to judge her would just be perpetuating vicious circles that she's been subject to for her entire life. But also, can't it be both personal and strategic? Given her track record, it feels more like she's finally choosing when and how to profit in a way that actually aligns with her values. She's always been vegan and cruelty-free and a PETA spokesperson, so acquiring a cruelty-free skincare brand tracks with who she's always been. Maybe that's not selling out at all. Maybe that's just learning how to be calculating in a healthy way. The uncomfortable part for me is that I admire it. I admire her ability to flip an honest personal decision into both empowerment and a business opportunity, because for so long I've been told that passion is only pure when it comes without a paycheck, that if you love the work, the reward should be the struggle itself. And that mindset is very convenient. It's a way for critics to dismiss people who actually dare to chase their dreams. If they can frame success as selling out, then they never have to face their own regrets. But here's the truth. Principles and money don't have to cancel each other out. If your values are solid, money doesn't have to corrupt intention. Sometimes it can actually support it. Sometimes the two can go hand in hand. So I wonder if my own hang-ups about money and authenticity are my issues to work through and not hers. So after pulling all that apart, the philosophy and the privilege and the marketing, where does that leave me? Honestly, I think I'm somewhere right in the middle. I'm perfectly happy leaving the house barefaced. I do not feel incomplete without makeup, but I am also perfectly happy spending an hour putting it on. Apparently, I contain multitudes, or at least I'm indecisive. When it comes to aging, I think I've decided I'm okay with looking like someone who actually went outside to play. I'm getting wrinkles, I'm getting sunspots, I'm getting a little saggy, but I haven't booked any consultations with any med spas. I'm still buying eyeshadow palettes, and that balance feels right to me. Wrinkles and shimmer, fine lines and winged liner, although we'll have to see how long liquid liner will continue working on these eyelids because the lash line is getting pretty crinkly. And in my head, I keep coming back to the question that I asked at the start. Why did one bare face cause such a frenzy? Maybe it's because we project so much onto beauty, and when someone breaks the script, it rattles us. Maybe it's because Pamela Anderson's makeup look was so iconic that when she took it off, many of us didn't even recognize her at first. Her true beauty had been hidden under layers of roles for so long. It was almost shocking to finally see her face without the costume. Or maybe it's because we're all secretly wondering what we would look like without our usual choices, and it feels safer to debate someone else's. Or maybe it's because beauty is never just personal. It's always a public performance of sorts that we all read meaning into, whether we intend to or not. Which is why maybe a bare face or a full glam face carries more meaning than we realize. For Pamela, it can be a personal reset or a business move. For the rest of us, it can stir up admiration, skepticism, or even our own insecurities. Here's the one thing I know for sure. Authenticity is complicated. The bigger truth is that there isn't just one correct way to do beauty or aging. Not for Pamela Anderson, not for me, not for you, which is either really liberating or terrifying, depending on your level of comfort with decision paralysis. And that's why I think that part of the answer has to come from you. What conversations are shaping your beauty choices? And more importantly, are you sure that they're your conversations and just not someone else's marketing plan dressed up as authenticity? If you enjoyed this take on beauty, then please like, comment, subscribe, and check out this video here. Thanks for hanging out, and a huge thanks to all of my patrons and channel members, including my Adagio angels, for making content like this possible. And I hope we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.